Most people think the most expensive thing they can lose is money, but they are dead wrong. You can be the smartest person in the room and still lose everything because of one invisible mistake. We often treat time like an infinite resource, yet it is the only thing we can never recover. Procrastination isn't just a simple habit. It is a thief that steals the future you haven't built yet. Imagine time as a relentless river, flowing steadily toward an ocean where every wasted moment eventually disappears forever. Without discipline, even the most brilliant minds find themselves adrift in a current they can no longer control. Every hour spent in idle distraction carries a hidden opportunity cost that compounds like a heavy, mounting debt. The true value of time becomes painfully clear only when the clock finally runs out on our dreams. Meet Ryan, a young man who believed his intellect alone would be enough to secure a golden future. His parents frequently warned him that wasting his youth would eventually lead to a lifetime of bitter regret. They saw the potential he was squandering, but Ryan simply laughed off their urgent concerns for his success. He believed he was too smart to be bound by the same rules of productivity as everyone else. Instead of working, he chose the easy path of procrastination, letting the precious days slip away entirely unnoticed. But the universe has a cold way of collecting debts from those who fail to respect the clock. The moment of reckoning arrived when Ryan saw his failing scores on the final exams he had ignored. Those poor grades weren't just numbers. They were the first visible cracks in his carefully constructed, arrogant ego. Can intelligence really save you from laziness when the world demands results instead of just raw potential? What is the price of a later that never comes for those who wait too long to start? Time is like a high-interest debt. If you don't pay it now, the interest will eventually bankrupt you. Ryan dreamed of entrepreneurship and greatness, but he lacked the necessary discipline to build a solid foundation. His reckless path stands in stark contrast to the legacy of Adam Reed, who mastered professional timing. To understand the true cost of a single wasted hour, we must look closer at Ryan's sudden downfall. We must look at someone who had every advantage and let it all slip through his idle fingers. Meet Ryan, a young man navigating the pulse of a massive neon-lit urban landscape. In the heart of this bustling city, Ryan lived within the warm embrace of his family. Life for Ryan was defined by the high expectations found in every skyscraper surrounding him. Among his peers, Ryan was not just another face. He was the undisputed leader of the pack. Every day, he walked the crowded streets, a mind full of potential amidst the urban chaos. In the classroom, Ryan's focus was legendary, earning him the title of the top-performing student. He mastered complex subjects with an ease that left his fellow classmates in absolute awe. Being the best student in his class was not just a label. It was his very identity. His teachers often paused their lessons just to marvel at his sharp and intuitive intelligence. They praised his analytical mind, seeing a future filled with discipline and grand entrepreneurial success. Even the legendary Adam Reed would have recognized the immense spark within this young scholar. Within the walls of his family home, his achievements were celebrated as milestones of a bright future. His parents looked at him and saw a boy destined to conquer the competitive world outside. Yet living in a big city meant Ryan was constantly surrounded by endless, tempting distractions. The value of time seemed abstract when every corner offered a new way to spend it. Ryan's life was a river analogy of wasted potential, flowing rapidly toward an uncertain destination. While he excelled at his studies, the concept of opportunity cost remained a distant theory. He believed his intelligence was a shield against the slow, creeping pull of daily procrastination. Ryan was the boy who had everything, standing on the precipice of a seemingly perfect life. His teachers saw greatness, his family saw success, and the city saw another bright soul. Every praise and every top grade reinforced the idea that he was truly untouchable. But even the brightest stars can lose their way in the blinding lights of the city. He spent his evenings surrounded by the love of his family and the weight of expectations. To the world, Ryan was a symbol of what happens when talent meets the right environment. However, even the best student in class cannot always filter out the city's hidden distractions. The slide into mediocrity is rarely a sudden fall. It is a slow and comfortable drift. It started small with a 5-minute video here and just one more game level there. We have all been there, trading our grandest dreams for a quick hit of digital dopamine. Ryan's once sharp academic focus began to soften as the Neon City's digital sirens started their song. He believed his intelligence was a shield, but even the strongest armor has hidden cracks and flaws. Distraction is like a slow leak in a boat. You rarely notice until the water rises. Ryan began spending hours lost in the endless scroll of YouTube instead of focusing on his studies. One video led to another, creating a cycle that consumed his most valuable and precious resource. The algorithm knew his weaknesses better than he knew himself, pulling him deeper into the digital void. Procrastination disguised itself as a well-deserved break, but it was actually a thief in the night. Soon, the glow of his phone replaced the light of his desk lamp late into the evening. He spent countless hours playing games on his mobile device, while his textbooks remained tightly closed. Every high score in the virtual world was a silent defeat in his real-life pursuit of excellence. The discipline required for entrepreneurship began to erode under the weight of these new easy habits. Ryan justified his choices by telling himself he would simply work twice as hard the next day. However, the value of time is absolute, and once a moment passes, it is gone forever. The city lights also beckoned him outside, offering the warmth of social laughter and late-night drinks. Ryan spent hours going out with friends when he should have been mastering his chosen craft. Every excessive social outing was a withdrawal from the bank account of his future success and potential. He traded the long-term rewards of hard work for the immediate, fleeting comfort of peer approval. This is the opportunity cost that many young professionals fail to calculate until it is too late. Like the river analogy suggests, time flows in one direction and carries everything in its powerful path. Ryan was no longer swimming toward his goals. He was simply floating along with the chaotic current. How many 5-minute breaks does it actually take to lose a future you once desperately wanted? Ryan didn't see the trap closing because he truly thought he was just taking a break. Following the wisdom of mentors like Adam Reed, true success requires a ruthless commitment to one's schedule. His potential remained high, but his daily actions were slowly dismantling the foundation of his dreams. The invisible debt of wasted time was growing, and the interest rate was becoming dangerously high. Ryan never realized that every minute spent on distractions was a down payment on his future failure. The trap of procrastination doesn't snap shut instantly. It winds around your life like a slow-moving vine. He would start his day with a single video, thinking he was just taking a quick morning break. But one YouTube video soon bled into 5 as the algorithm whispered promises of endless digital entertainment. Hours vanished into the glow of the screen while his textbooks remained unopened and his potential stayed dormant. This is the true opportunity cost of a life spent watching others live theirs instead of building yours. When the guilt of wasted time became too heavy, he turned to his phone for a different escape. Mobile games offered him a hollow sense of achievement that his real life was currently lacking. He spent hours leveling up virtual characters while his own skills and grades continued to slowly wither. Every digital victory was a hidden defeat in the reality he was supposed to be conquering right now. Ryan believed these small choices were harmless, failing to see the river analogy of time's relentless flow. Just as a river carves a canyon, these tiny habits were reshaping his entire future into one of mediocrity. Then came the calls from friends, inviting him to lose himself in the city's neon-soaked social scene. He chose social outings over late-night study sessions, trading his long-term dreams for a few hours of laughter. These nights out felt like living, but they were actually subtractions from the man he intended to become. He was spending hours in bars and clubs when he should have been investing in his own discipline. The invisible debt was no longer a metaphor. It was becoming the defining characteristic of his daily routine. In the world of entrepreneurship, time is the only currency you can never earn back once it is spent. Every hour spent gaming or scrolling was a withdrawal from a bank account that never sees a deposit. Ryan was bankrupting his future self, one short distraction at a time, without even knowing it. He didn't see the connection between his current comfort and the coming storm of missed opportunities and regret. To succeed, one must understand that discipline is the bridge between goals and actual human accomplishment. But Ryan was burning that bridge every single night, fueled by the cheap dopamine of digital distractions. The math of wasted time is simple and brutal, compounding daily until the total cost becomes truly unbearable. A few hours here and there eventually turn into weeks of progress that simply never happened at all. Adam Reed once noted that the most expensive thing you can own is a calendar full of regrets. Ryan's lifestyle was slowly becoming a testament to the high price of choosing easy paths over necessary work. He was drifting further away from his potential, lost in a sea of YouTube clips and mobile game rewards. The tragedy of his situation was how comfortable he felt while his entire future was slowly slipping away. He forgot that the value of time is measured by what we create, not just what we consume. The most dangerous lie we tell ourselves is, "I'll do it tomorrow," and Ryan believed it every single day. As the neon lights flickered outside, his parents watched their gifted son drift further away from his potential. They saw the subtle shifts in his behavior that he was far too distracted to notice himself. Finally, they chose to speak up, but Ryan was already tuned out to the frequencies of their concern. His mother's voice carried the weight of experience, yet her words felt like white noise in his ears. His parents warned him that he would deeply regret wasting these precious years on meaningless digital distractions. They spoke of the value of time, comparing it to a river that never flows backward for anyone. Ryan just leaned back, a confident smirk playing on his lips as if he knew a secret. He completely ignored their advice, convinced that his natural intelligence would bail him out when the time came. Why is advice from the people who love us most often the hardest for us to actually hear? Ignoring their warnings was like turning off a smoke alarm just because the persistent noise felt annoying. He felt he was still the same gifted student, regardless of how many hours he lost to screens. To Ryan, his parents were just relics of an era that didn't understand the speed of modern life. He viewed their discipline as an outdated concept that had no place in his exciting neon-lit world. The opportunity cost of his leisure was a calculation he simply wasn't ready to make quite yet. He believed he had an infinite supply of tomorrows to fix whatever mistakes he was making today. He mistook his high intelligence for wisdom, failing to realize that one does not guarantee the other. Every time they tried to reach him, he built the walls of his digital fortress a little higher. He promised himself he would start his journey toward entrepreneurship once the current season of games ended. Procrastination felt comfortable, like a warm blanket shielding him from the cold reality of hard work. His parents' faces etched with worry became just another background element in his increasingly cluttered room. Do you really have as much time as you think, or are you just holding a fading light? Ryan assumed his future was a guaranteed destination rather than a path he had to actively carve out. He laughed off their concerns, telling them they were worrying about problems that didn't even exist yet. To him, the river analogy was just a poetic phrase, not a literal warning about his wasting life. He remained the master of his own illusion, convinced that he was still the hero of his story. While his parents saw a tragedy in the making, Ryan saw nothing but endless, glowing possibilities ahead. He lacked the discipline to see that every hour spent in distraction was a debt he would pay. But tomorrow has a habit of arriving much sooner than any of us ever truly expected to. The warnings were silenced, leaving only the hum of the city and the ticking of an ignored clock. We often believe that high intelligence acts as a shield against the consequences of wasted time. For Ryan, his sharp mind was not a tool for success, but a dangerous safety net. Since he was young, Ryan was remarkably good at studying without ever putting in much effort. His teachers constantly praised his intelligence, reinforcing the idea that he was naturally ahead of others. This early success created a myth that his talent could overcome any obstacle at the last minute. While others labored over their work, Ryan relied on his cognitive speed to bypass the need for discipline. His parents often warned him about the value of time, yet their advice fell on deaf ears. He ignored their wisdom, believing his academic brilliance made him immune to the slow rot of procrastination. Every ignored warning was a step toward a cliff he was too confident to actually see. This psychological barrier creates a pattern where the smart believe they can outrun the setting sun. Procrastination becomes a seductive game when you think your brain can solve anything in an hour. Ryan viewed his life through a river analogy, assuming the current of talent would always carry him. He failed to realize that even the strongest swimmers eventually tire against a relentless and rising tide. In the world of entrepreneurship, raw intelligence is frequently defeated by those who simply show up daily. Adam Reed once noted that discipline will always outpace the gifted who refuse to start early. Ryan's ego became a heavy anchor, dragging him down while he waited for a spark of inspiration. He calculated the opportunity cost of his distractions, yet felt his intellect could pay any price. This arrogance is the hidden trap that many high performers fall into without ever sensing the danger. They believe they are the exception to the rule until the clock finally strikes the midnight hour. Ryan's story is a sobering reminder that talent without structure is merely a recipe for forgotten potential. The very brilliance that earned him praise became the reason he felt he could ignore the rules. He thought he was playing a high-stakes game he was destined to win with a final move. But time does not care about your IQ or the accolades you collected in your youth. It moves forward with an icy indifference, leaving the unprepared to drown in their own wasted potential. The gap between what Ryan could have been and what he became started widening every single day. One day, one envelope, and the best student title was gone forever. Then came the day of reckoning, the day the river stopped flowing for Ryan. The morning sun felt heavy as the city prepared for the final exam results release. Thousands of futures hung in the balance as the official grades were released on a single day. Ryan stood amidst the crowd, his heart racing against the ticking clock of his own choices. He reached for the envelope, feeling the paper-thin weight of months of wasted time. As his eyes scanned the page, the harsh reality of his poor performance finally sank in. The high marks he once took for granted had vanished into a sea of red ink. The report card was a mirror that Ryan finally could not look away from any longer. His teachers looked on with heavy hearts, their belief in his genius replaced by profound disappointment. They had seen his potential, but now they only saw the cost of his persistent procrastination. How do you look at the people who believed in you after you have let them down? The halls grew quiet as his friends began avoiding him, their laughter fading into the distance. Success has many fathers, but Ryan found that failure is often a very lonely destination. Those who once sought his help now walked past, leaving him in a vacuum of silence. The walk home felt like a march toward a judgment he could no longer escape. His parents sat at the kitchen table, the light reflecting off the paper of his failure. No words were needed as they expressed their disappointment while looking at his grim report card. Their silence was louder than any lecture, weighing more than the heavy neon city outside. Every hour he had traded for distraction now demanded a price he was not prepared to pay. This was the opportunity cost of procrastination, laid bare in the flickering light of his home. Is failure a permanent destination for Ryan, or is it a brutal, necessary wake-up call? Even names like Adam Reed would have struggled to find inspiration in such a crushing moment. The silence that followed was louder than any lecture his parents could have ever given him. Ryan realized that the river of time had finally pushed him over the edge. Broken and lost, Ryan went to the only person who didn't look at him with disappointment. He sought the perspective of his grandfather, a man widely respected for his deep, quiet wisdom. In the quiet library of a retired professor, Ryan finally found a truth he had ignored. The room smelled of old paper and wood, a sanctuary far from the city's neon lights. His grandfather sat quietly, his presence commanding a respect that few others in the city possessed. This retired professor had spent a lifetime studying the very lessons Ryan had so carelessly neglected. Ryan looked down at his hands, the weight of his recent failure pressing heavily on him. Without a word of judgment, the old man listened to the story of the lost title. He understood that Ryan's failure wasn't about intelligence, but about something much more fundamental and rare. With a calm voice, he explained that Ryan's downfall was caused by a lack of valuing time. Ryan had treated his minutes like pebbles, throwing them away without considering their true, immense worth. His grandfather leaned forward, his eyes reflecting the deep understanding of a man who knew loss. He began to speak of the natural world, drawing a parallel that Ryan would never forget. "Time is the water of a river," he whispered, as if revealing a long-forgotten sacred secret. "Once it flows away, it never comes back," he continued, letting the heavy silence settle. If time is a river, are you swimming with purpose or just drifting toward the edge? You can never truly step in the same water twice because the current is always moving. The river analogy hit Ryan with the force of a tidal wave, washing away shallow excuses. He realized that every moment spent in distraction was water lost to the sea of the past. This lack of discipline was the hidden cost of the procrastination he had practiced so casually. The professor knew that whether in entrepreneurship or academics, discipline is the only true currency. He spoke of the opportunity cost of every hour Ryan had wasted on his digital devices. As thinkers like Adam Reed have noted, time is the one resource we cannot ever manufacture. The grandfather's words were a seed planted in the fertile ground of Ryan's sudden, painful realization. But to grow, Ryan needed to see what happened to those who never learned this lesson. The silence that followed was no longer empty, but filled with the weight of new understanding. The grandfather leaned forward, his eyes reflecting the weight of a story that needed to be shared. To show Ryan the gravity of his situation, he spoke of a man named Adam Reed. Think Ryan's stakes were high? Adam Reed did not just lose a grade. He lost an empire. Long before his fall, Adam Reed stood as the powerful CEO of a massive international company. He was not born into wealth, but instead forged his path through relentless hard work and dedication. Every brick of his business empire was laid with discipline and a fierce respect for every second. In those early days, Adam understood that entrepreneurship required a constant battle against the clock. He treated time like the precious currency it is, investing every moment into his growing vision. Soon, his small venture transformed into a global titan that dominated markets across several continents. Adam Reed had reached the absolute peak, looking down from a mountain he built himself. But at the summit, the air changed, and the very discipline that built him began to wither. With billions in the bank, Adam started to believe he had finally outrun the reach of time. He stopped watching the weather, assuming the mountain he built was permanent and immune to decay. Wealth brought a dangerous illusion of security, making him feel like he owned the hours ahead. Slowly, the man who once fought for every minute began to let the hours slip away unnoticed. Procrastination, a ghost he had defeated years ago, returned to haunt his glass-walled corner office. He began to view time as an infinite resource rather than the fleeting river it truly is. Meetings were delayed and decisions were deferred as the edge that made him great started to blunt. Adam Reed, the master of industry, had become a slave to the comfort of his own success. He forgot that the opportunity cost of a wasted hour is often the future itself. The once dedicated leader now spent his afternoons drifting through distractions, ignoring the cracks in his foundation. Does money make time more valuable, or does it simply mask the high price of wasting it? For Adam Reed, the answer came far too late as he began to lose respect for the clock. He failed to see that even the tallest empire can crumble when its leader stops paying attention. Success can be the ultimate distraction if you are not careful to guard your most precious asset. We think making it means we can finally relax, but for Adam Reed, relaxing was just the beginning of the end. The same habits that nearly broke a student began to rot a multi-million-dollar corporation from the inside out. In the high-stakes world of entrepreneurship, even a titan like Adam Reed was not immune to the pull of procrastination. The morning sun would climb high into the sky while Adam remained lost in a deep, unproductive slumber. Waking up late became his new routine, causing the once sharp leader to fall behind on every critical deadline. He delayed important work that required his immediate attention, letting the river of time wash away his competitive edge. Instead of managing his busy office, Adam found himself trapped in the endless loop of social media feeds. He spent hours scrolling through digital noise, ignoring the mounting pile of documents that demanded his executive decisions. Every swipe on his screen represented a massive opportunity cost that his business could simply no longer afford. The vibrant energy of the headquarters began to fade as the leader's lack of discipline poisoned the entire atmosphere. Can a business truly survive a leader who is no longer present to navigate the complex storms of industry? Noticing the decline, a senior business advisor stepped into the silent office to deliver a grim, necessary warning. This trusted mentor cautioned Adam that the entire company would face imminent danger without a radical change in habits. A CEO ignoring his advisors is exactly like a pilot ignoring his radar while flying into a deadly storm. Despite the blunt warning, Adam felt the heavy chains of procrastination pulling him back toward his glowing smartphone screen. Profits began to plummet as the lack of leadership left the corporation drifting aimlessly without any clear direction. The distraction trap had finally closed its iron jaws on a man who once believed he was untouchable. Adam knew the value of time was slipping through his fingers, yet he felt powerless to stop the slide. What is the true cost of one late morning when your entire legacy is hanging by a thread? The warning signs were everywhere, but Adam was simply too busy scrolling his life away to see them. In the ruthless business world, if you stand still, you are actually moving backward at a dangerous speed. Adam Reed had been standing still for a long time, unaware that his empire was slowly crumbling apart. This collapse did not happen overnight, but when the end finally came, the destruction was absolute and total. Just a few months after his advisors ignored warning, the company's monthly profits began to plummet rapidly. The financial numbers were no longer lies. They were cold, hard proof of a dying and neglected dream. While Adam distracted himself, hungry competitors surged ahead, claiming the market share he once dominated so effortlessly. His once mighty company was a castle built on sand, and the tide was finally coming in fast. This was the heavy opportunity cost of procrastination, a debt that was finally being called in by reality. Within the office walls, the atmosphere shifted from vibrant energy to a thick and suffocating sense of dread. Once loyal employees lost all trust in Adam's leadership as they watched their captain abandon the sinking ship. What is a legacy worth if it can be destroyed in just a few months of sheer neglect? Whispers turned into shouts as the team realized their hard work was being sacrificed for Adam's own laziness. Seeing the writing on the wall, panicked investors began withdrawing their capital at an alarming and unstoppable rate. The lifeblood of the business was draining away, leaving behind only the hollow shell of a former empire. The final collapse was total, leaving Adam Reed with absolutely nothing after years of hard and dedicated work. He did not just lose his company. He lost everything he had spent his entire life carefully building. He learned too late that the value of time is the only thing that truly matters in life. The river of time had finally swept away the man who thought he could ignore its constant flow. Every moment wasted on digital distractions became the final nail in the coffin of his great family legacy. The once revered entrepreneur was now just a cautionary tale for those who forget that discipline is always mandatory. He stood alone in his empty office, haunted by the ghost of the man he used to be. Adam Reed lost everything, not because he lacked intelligence, but because he simply stopped respecting the river. The story of the fallen CEO was the shock Ryan's system desperately needed to wake up. Ryan realized he was staring at his own future in the tragic story of Adam Reed. He understood that if he didn't change right now, he would lose everything he valued. What would you do if you saw your own failure coming like a distant storm? Are you willing to kill your distractions today to save the future you once dreamed of? For Ryan, the slippery slope of procrastination had finally reached a sharp and painful dead end. He decided to stop drifting and started building a dam to control the river of time. Discipline became his new weapon as he prepared to battle the habits that held him back. To change his life, Ryan sat down and created a strict, uncompromising new study routine. Every hour was now accounted for, turning his chaotic schedule into a blueprint for success. He knew that every wasted minute was a high opportunity cost he could no longer afford. Ryan looked at his smartphone, the primary gateway for the digital distractions that consumed his days. With a firm hand, he began reducing the time he spent lost in mobile device rabbit holes. The endless cycle of YouTube videos was the first major distraction he chose to eliminate entirely. He deleted the apps that whispered promises of easy entertainment while stealing his precious focus. The silence in his room felt heavy at first, but it was the silence of productivity. By limiting his digital world, Ryan reclaimed hours that had previously vanished into thin air. He was no longer a victim of the algorithm, but the master of his own destiny. This wasn't just about studying. It was about honoring the value of time he once ignored. Like an aspiring entrepreneur, he began investing his energy into assets that would actually grow. The temptation to check his notifications still flickered, but his resolve remained steady and strong. He replaced the glow of the screen with the weight of textbooks and deep, meaningful work. Every page turned was a step away from the ghost of Adam Reed's failed empire. Ryan was finally learning that true freedom comes through the gates of self-imposed discipline. The phone went off, the books came out, and his remarkable transformation had finally begun. Ryan stood at the threshold of change, finally ready to reclaim the precious value of time. He realized that every moment spent on meaningless scrolling was a direct payment to his procrastination. The first strike against his old life was silencing the digital noise that drowned his ambition. With a steady hand, Ryan began deleting the apps that once acted as anchors for his potential. YouTube and social media had become a black hole, consuming hours that belonged to his future success. He drastically reduced his mobile screen time, cutting the cords of constant, exhausting digital distraction. Every notification was a thief, stealing the focus he needed to master his craft and discipline. Instead of drifting down the river of time, Ryan chose to pick up the oars and row. The ghost of Adam Reed's failure haunted him, serving as a warning against the comfort of stagnation. To avoid the same fate, he drafted a rigorous study routine designed to rebuild his broken foundation. This wasn't just a schedule. It was a blueprint for a life built on academic discipline. He structured his mornings around deep work, ensuring the hardest tasks were faced with a fresh mind. The opportunity cost of his old habits was high, but the reward for focus was even higher. Ryan learned that entrepreneurship in his own life required the same relentless drive as any business empire. Every hour of study was an investment, turning his wasted potential into a tangible, powerful asset. He replaced the dopamine hits of likes with the quiet satisfaction of mastering complex new subjects. The river of time was no longer his enemy, but a current he finally learned to navigate. He realized that discipline is not a cage, but the key that unlocks the door to freedom. His desk, once a cluttered graveyard of abandoned dreams, became a dedicated sanctuary for growth and learning. By tracking every minute, he ensured that no more of his life was lost to idle wandering. Ryan finally understood that the most expensive thing anyone can lose is the time they cannot reclaim. He studied the principles of Adam Reed, vowing never to let success lead him back into complacency. The transformation was difficult, yet the clarity he found in the silence was worth every sacrifice. His focus sharpened and the path forward finally became clear through the heavy digital haze. This was the moment Ryan stopped being a passenger and became the architect of his own destiny. Discipline is never a punishment. It is the necessary price of admission for true greatness. Months of silence passed as Ryan traded his chaotic habits for a life of intentional focus. He no longer drifted with the current but began rowing with a steady, relentless rhythm. Every morning started before the sun, reclaiming hours that used to vanish into digital shadows. He realized that procrastination was just a thief stealing from the man he was meant to become. Ryan viewed his schedule not as a cage, but as the blueprint for his total reclamation. The value of time became his new currency, and he refused to spend it on mediocrity. He remembered Adam Reed's fall and used that warning to fuel his own disciplined ascent. In the quiet corners of the library, he dismantled the opportunity costs that once drained him. Each textbook became a battlefield where focus conquered the lingering urge to simply walk away. Distractions still whispered his name, but his commitment to discipline spoke louder than any notification. How much faster do you travel when you stop carrying the heavy weight of constant distraction? Ryan finally understood that entrepreneurship of the self requires ruthless management of every single second. The river of time was still flowing, but he was finally the one steering the boat. He stopped making excuses about yesterday and started making investments into his vision of tomorrow. There is a unique, quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing you have mastered your own mind. Week after week, the internal drift vanished, replaced by the solid foundation of structured daily habits. The shadow of his initial failure no longer haunted him. It served as a powerful motivator. He embraced the friction of hard work, knowing that iron is only sharpened through intense pressure. Then came the day when the new results were finally posted for the entire class to see. Ryan walked toward the bulletin board with a calm confidence he hadn't felt in a year. His eyes scanned the list, searching for the name that had once fallen to the bottom. There it was, sitting at the very top, proof that his reclamation was finally complete. Ryan had officially become the top student in his class again through sheer, unyielding discipline. Is there any better feeling than the taste of hard-earned redemption after a long climb? He wasn't just back to where he started. He was a fundamentally better version of himself. The neon city still pulsed outside, but Ryan was no longer just a passenger in its flow. He had learned that the most expensive thing you can lose isn't money, but your time. With his focus restored and his status reclaimed, Ryan looked toward a future he now controlled. He wasn't just back to his old self, it was something much more powerful and focused. Years later, Ryan is no longer just a student. He has become the one teaching others about time. The habits forged in his darkest moments eventually built a foundation for his thriving new career. This journey from failure to triumph spans several years of relentless discipline and unwavering focus. He transitioned from academic recovery to the challenging and rewarding world of modern entrepreneurship. Unlike Adam Reed before him, Ryan understood that complacency is the silent killer of every great empire. Every business decision he made was rooted in his deep understanding of the true value of time. He often reminded his growing team that time is the ultimate key to achieving lasting success. His story began to spread far beyond the neon-lit streets where his journey first started. People from all walks of life looked to Ryan as a living testament to the power of discipline. He became a beacon of hope for those struggling with the heavy weight of chronic procrastination. Ryan proved that failing once does not mean your entire story has to end in defeat. He turned his past mistakes into a blueprint for others to follow toward their own greatness. Through his leadership, he taught many how to calculate the invisible opportunity cost of every wasted hour. His life had become the very proof of the principles he once chose to ignore. Instead of drifting with the current, Ryan had finally mastered the powerful river of time. He used its strength to drive his dreams forward rather than letting it wash them away. The entrepreneur watched as his vision expanded, touching lives across the globe through his inspiring words. Success was no longer a distant dream, but a reality built through thousands of small, disciplined choices. He stood as a successful entrepreneur who never forgot the sting of his early academic failures. This transformation was not an accident. It was the result of honoring every single passing second. His daily routine reflected the hard-earned wisdom of a man who refused to ever look back. Now Ryan asks the world, what kind of legacy are you building with your time right now? If you can master your minutes, there is absolutely nothing in this world you cannot eventually master. The student who once lost everything had finally become the master of his own destiny. Ryan's journey has reached its end, but the real narrative of your life starts right now. The river is flowing right now. Will you let it wash away your potential or build your empire? Recall the shadow of Adam Reed, a man who built a kingdom only to lose it to comfort. Ryan eventually learned that the value of time is the absolute foundation for every success you seek. He lived by one unwavering principle. Time is not just money, it is the key to true success. Procrastination is the silent thief that steals the moments you need to bridge the gap toward your dreams. Every hour wasted on distractions carries a hidden opportunity cost that your future self will eventually pay. Discipline is the only vessel strong enough to navigate the relentless currents of the river of time. Whether you pursue entrepreneurship or personal mastery, your relationship with the clock determines your ultimate destination. Your life is the boat, and time is the water. Tell me, where exactly are you heading today? Are you finally ready to stop saying later and start reclaiming the hours that belong to you? What is the very first distraction you are going to cut from your schedule before the sun sets? Every single decision you make today is a brick in the foundation of the legacy you leave. Don't let the noise of the world drown out the ticking of your own internal clock. If this message resonated with you, join our community of people who refuse to let their time vanish. Subscribe now to master your focus and ensure you never become a ghost of your own potential. Share this video with someone who needs a wake-up call before their own river runs completely dry. The choice is yours. Will you master the river, or will you simply drift away? Remember that the greatest debt you can ever owe is the time you promised to yourself. Respect the river of time, stay disciplined, and we will see you in the next journey.